Welcome to The Explainer. So, for decades, the United States has been recognized globally as the absolute ultimate land of opportunity, right? This massive narrative that has completely shaped generations, literally driving millions of people to seek out a better life. But, when we look at the data today, we really have to stop and ask ourselves, how much of this narrative is actual reality and how much is just an illusion?
Okay, let's dive into this. It's 2026, and right now, millions of citizens are staring at their bank accounts, their career prospects, and just the general economy around them. And they're asking this exact incredibly difficult question. Is the American dream still alive? Has it evolved? Or, well, has it slipped completely out of reach for the everyday person? To really understand where we're at today, we can't just look at the present moment. We've got to look back at the actual economic machinery that brought us here.
And to do that, we've got a clear roadmap for you today. We'll start with the post-war boom, then look at how Wall Street takes over. From there, we'll examine the 2008 financial crisis, explore the modern wealth gap, and finally wrap up with the future of the dream. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The post-war boom and the building of an economic superpower.
So, following World War II, the nation emerged as the world's absolute strongest economy. And it was all fueled by this simple yet profound ideal, the American dream. Essentially, it's the core concept that anyone, absolutely regardless of their background or where they started in life, can work hard, build wealth, and achieve real success. As we move through the decades today, we're going to track the health of this very specific ideal.
During this mid-century era, the engines of prosperity were running at full speed. Factories were expanding rapidly across the country, and stable, long-term jobs just multiplied. Because of this, home ownership, which used to be this luxury reserved for a select few, suddenly became incredibly common. It actually surged to over 60% by the 1960s. Millions of families proudly entered the middle class, creating this shared prosperity and upward mobility that was completely unmatched anywhere else in the world at the time.
Which brings us to part 2. Wall Street takes over, a shifting economy. But, economies are like living systems. They rarely stay the exact same forever. And if we trace this chronological evolution, the shift becomes incredibly clear. Decades ago, the absolute backbone of the economy was manufacturing and factory expansion. But then, we hit the transition phase. Technology rapidly advanced and basically began replacing a lot of those traditional manual jobs. And that brings us to the modern era, where large, multinational corporations and complex financial markets have scooped up the vast majority of economic power. Essentially, the factory floor was traded for the trading floor.
And this brilliantly illustrates the growing divide. This economic evolution created a pretty harsh split in the American experience. On one side, you have Wall Street seeing massive capital gains and record stock market highs, with executive compensation literally skyrocketing by hundreds of % over the decades. But on the other side, Main Street, everyday American workers who saw their wages essentially stagnate when you adjust them for inflation. The structural divide between the financial sector and the everyday workforce was, officially wide open.
Section 3. The 2008 financial crisis. Disaster strikes.
2008. The sheer vulnerability of this new economic structure was exposed in the most brutal way possible through a sudden, massive housing market collapse. Now, we all know this wasn't just your standard market downturn. It triggered the absolute worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, and it severely ruptured the entire global financial system.
And the human cost of this event? Absolutely staggering. The devastation was widespread, and it was immediate. Millions of hardworking people suddenly lost their jobs. Nearly 10 million people were displaced as they lost the homes they had literally worked their whole lives to buy. And over $16 trillion in net worth was just wiped out, meaning countless older citizens watched their entire retirement savings vanish overnight. This crisis inflicted lasting, deep scars on families across the entire country, and frankly, a lot of them never fully recovered.
Moving to Section 4, the modern wealth gap. Easy money and new challenges.
Let's move to this next phase and see how this builds. To prevent a total economic collapse back in 2008, massive policy interventions were required. And those policies, they fundamentally shaped the reality of your wallet today. Step 1 was the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates to basically zero and injecting massive amounts of money directly into the economy. Step 2, this absolutely helped stabilize the markets, for sure, but it heavily inflated asset prices, think stocks and real estate, which dramatically increased wealth inequality. Then we hit Step 3.
Years later, as a consequence of all these various pressures, inflation surged, making your everyday groceries and gas incredibly expensive. Which forces step 4, policymakers having to rapidly raise interest rates, making a mortgage or a car loan suddenly cost a small fortune. The end result of all this? A brand new era of really deep economic uncertainty.
Yet, despite all of this turbulence, it's actually kind of staggering to realize that America remains one of the richest nations on Earth. The sheer volume of wealth generated within the country's borders is, frankly, mind-boggling. But there is massive friction between this top-level national wealth and the actual reality on the ground for the average citizen.
Everyone feels the sting of this disconnect today. Many families are struggling under the absolute crushing weight of rising housing costs. I mean, the median home price is far outpacing median income compared to where it was in the 1950s. Add to that consistently increasing healthcare expenses and, of course, mounting inescapable student debt. Meanwhile, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, the wealthiest individuals continue to accumulate enormous, completely unprecedented fortunes. This stark contrast, this gap between elite wealth and everyday survival, has become one of the single most debated and defining issues in modern America.
Which brings us to our final section, Future of the Dream, Opportunity versus Reality. So, where does the nation go from here? Well, it's absolutely vital to remember that despite these deep, systemic challenges we've talked about, the United States still possesses formidable global power. The country continues to heavily lead the world in innovation, in rapid technological advancement, and in that classic spirit of entrepreneurship. The raw ingredients for wealth creation and societal advancement, they are undeniably still present. The engine itself isn't broken. It's really just a question of who that engine is working for.
And that leaves us with this final, really profound question to ponder. Can economic growth actually benefit everyone? Or will the divide between the ideal of opportunity and the reality of the modern economy just continue to grow? The future of the American dream, whether it remains a tangible reality for us or fades into a historical illusion, will entirely depend on how America answers that very question. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions, and I'll catch you next time.